Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters. This was kind of an odd week for us. I was out of town, for those of you who didn't know, so I couldn't see Keeper right off the rip, and they were keeping this one behind lock and key. Neon was not giving out any screeners nor advanced screenings for critics for this, so I just knew I was going to have to take it on the chin. And Tuesday, when we're recording this, I just got back from seeing it. Luke, you went and saw this thing on Thursday, right?
I did. Yes,
Okay.
highly anticipated, with the marketing and everything. Everyone was getting chocolate cakes, apparently. We did miss out on that, but it was really interesting. Obviously, with Osgood Perkins and Neon, they always do great marketing, and we never really know what we're in for. But especially this one. This one, like you said, was kept behind locked doors for the longest time.
Yeah, so what we thought would be fun was just because like Osgood Perkins has kind of been on a run recently. And I don't know, I just to kind of spice this up because I know everybody's already gotten their reviews and their spoiler reviews. I figured we talk some spoilers on Keepers, that way I can get my full thoughts and Luke can get his full thoughts out there for you guys if you've seen the film. But then I also just kind of want to touch back and just talk about just Osgood Perkins as a whole, because I feel like this is a director who everybody's always complaining about his movies. It's either you love him or you hate him, and I think that we both kind of fall somewhere in the middle. So I think we should kind of circle up and check back in on Longlegs and the Monkey.
Cuckoo, 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 cuckoo.
I don't know what that was supposed to be.
First thing up, we are going with Keeper. And literally just got out of the theater, just got out of experiencing what did they call this at first? This was like another strange trip from
Yeah.
Osgood Perkins. I went into this pretty much expecting to be pretty disappointed. I kind of figured that, in my mind, where Osgood Perkins has been is he's kind of left me disappointed when it's building big expectations with something like Longlegs. The Monkey, which I was completely caught off guard by, and then this where it's like, I don't know. I just feel like I'm going to walk out dissatisfied. So it was weird. It was weird going into this. And I got to say, through probably the first 60% of this movie, I was pretty disappointed. I was like, this is very slow, and I feel like I've already figured everything out that's going on. And then by the end of it, I thought, at least you gave me something cool, something to chew on, something to think about visually and, in the story here. You did something a little different, and I put some respect there. So I guess the first half of the movie, I'm a little cold on. The last half, it gets a little warm. I'm at least a little bit more excited.
It's always such a battle going into these films, especially after seeing something like Longlegs, which I do like, but the marketing for Longlegs was so strong, and then it kind of falters a little bit throughout that film. Same thing with Keeper, where your expectations, you're kind of reserved in what you're going to be getting. But the marketing from Neon tends to be so strong, and I'll say with Keeper, I love the little teases. I love not really knowing what we're going to be expecting for the story. So I went in reserved, but it's hard not to be excited about what you're going to be getting. And I'll say for Keeper, I was with you in terms of I felt this was a little slower, but would not necessarily like at a very, very slow pace, but something like Black Coat's Daughter, I put it on par with something like that, where it has its slow moments as well, where this one is such a contained story where we're out in this cabin and it really is just these two characters for the most part, and sometimes just one character on screen. So it's really character heavy, and you can really feel that pacing in that runtime just because of not necessarily getting a big change in scenery, but they do build up a decent amount of tension throughout the film. I felt when we were kind of getting into our character Liz looking outside, and I love some of the shots in this thing where she's looking outside the window and you kind of just see this greenery, the woods. And I don't know if you got this, Dylan, but we're seeing these just wide shots of the forest, everything. And then as soon as we get back into the cabin, I don't know. I kept looking everywhere in the scene of like where anything could be popping up. And there was a time in here where they did get me. I was focused on Liz on the phone and something comes creeping up behind her, and it took me a moment. Usually I'm so perceptive with those things, but I'll say at that point it really did get me, because I was like, it was already halfway in the scene before my eyes even gravitated toward that.
Yeah, one that got me with a double take was when the cousin came over. What's his name? I got IMDb pulled up right here. But the cousin comes over, and you have that awkward experience, Darren, where it's like he's just kind of trancing into the house and kind of making this whole scene. But like you're already uncomfortable by that because you don't know his intentions. It seems like he's in the know of something that we're not, obviously. And when she walks into the bathroom and locks herself in there, I could swear when she was on the phone, like trying to call, I think it was at this point she was calling Malcolm again. I swore that when she walked by the mirror, it was the redhead in the first reflection.
I think
And
it was.
okay, so yeah, that's where, see, I felt like I saw something like that, but it was just one of those blink and you miss it kind of things. And like, that's when I really started to, I guess, confirm my suspicions about just kind of what was going on with this film. And I gotta say, the whole idea that, like, at first I thought, again, it was just this dude had multiple wives, multiple families, girlfriends, whatever, and he would bring them here, and like him and his cousin, we're gonna find out, are just like both serial killers, and it's just their ghosts or whatever, because it's really leaning, I would say, towards like it being a ghost story for a long time.
I picked up on, I thought we were dealing with some sort of folk tale throughout it. I don't know, just the vibe that we got from the teases that we had, and just something about being out in the woods. I was like, even going into this, I thought maybe it was going to be like, was it Gretel Hansel? I thought maybe it was
Okay,
going to be
I forgot he
something.
did that actually, so yeah.
Yeah. So I was thinking, I picked up on that vibe going into it. So I was hoping, even on the Sunday Scaries I mentioned, I thought maybe it was going to be some sort of witch. So I was kind of expecting that sort of element to it, and some sort of timelessness. I didn't know exactly where it was going to go, but throughout the duration of the runtime, I'll say I started kind of figuring out and connecting a lot of dots. My wife actually went with me, and as soon as the credits rolled, she looked over at me and she said, I started figuring out where the story was going really early on, and that never happens. And I think maybe that could be for a lot of people, of them breadcrumbing you to an extent. But as soon as you get to the cabin and Darren shows up, you already know something's really off. They put such an emphasis on the cake, and I don't think that's an accident, but you can start kind of
Hmm.
seeing where the story is navigating, especially when Darren keeps showing up and they kind of keep dropping so many hints. And then by the time they unveiling everything, I don't think it was unsatisfying by any means, but I liked the kind of story that they were telling. It just left something to be desired for me.
Yeah, I would say, oddly enough, I feel very similarly, but in almost an opposite way to how I felt with Heretic, where I
Mm.
love the buildup of Heretic. I thought that was incredible, everything. And then once we get into the basement, we kind of see what's going on, which I won't say anymore because I don't want to spoil that movie. It's one of those things where I'm like, okay, I, I'm not feeling this really. Like, it's kind of, you're stretching me a little thin there. Where this one, it was almost like you're not doing enough for me. That's like really taking my breath away or really moving me along. Like, I'm following it, but I'm almost following it like begrudgingly. I could feel myself at times in the theater just being like, okay, let's just kind of get through this. I get we're playing the cat and mouse thing. The tension just wasn't there for me in some of these moments. But I gotta say, once we actually get to the reveal and we start realizing, kind of all these pieces are coming together and we start seeing what these are, these little, I guess you'd call them what, like forest demons? There's like four of them
Yeah, I would say some sort of offspring.
of
You
like a
can't.
witch.
Yeah, from a witch, I guess you would say. They never really eh, over-explain or really explain too much as to what is going on, but it's just kind of these entities that were birthed from what we're assuming is a witch. Which I like that. I like that, not narrowing
Yeah,
down
I
the
love
kind of
that.
narrative and the folklore of what we're going to go. I just liked being in this kind of folky horror kind of tale, because sometimes those things are a really fine balancing act of telling too much or telling not enough. And I do think from this aspect of what we do get, I wasn't necessarily thrilled with the design overall. I think some elements just didn't hit right for me, but I loved the presentation of everything and kind of that buildup that we do get.
Yeah, I would say that all the ideas I love. I love everything that's there. Execution's pretty good. I think the scene, like you said, right at the end, when she is kind of by, I guess you'd say that, what is it, like just a body sculpture of some kind that they put the head on. Like when you see that thing with the face, the wide open mouth, the drippy one, the drooly one, I should say. That was incredible. I loved that. I loved how creepy and freaky that thing is. And I actually really liked all of it. Like I have to admit, I've tooled around in some of the scripts and things we've talked about with an entity with multiple faces kind of mashed together, and I thought they did a good job with that. I liked it. I know it was CG a bit more than I would like, but I liked the ideas there. I just think like there's a way we could have played with it more that didn't make it feel so much like a supernatural ghost, which I get to a sense it kind of is, but like to have these things have an actual physical form, it's just one of those things where it's like I would have played so much harder with that in the script and in the story to make this woman think she's going crazy.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of potential with this story. I like that we actually do get a physical form. I wasn't crazy about the CGI. I like the idea, and that's where I think when we're talking about Osgood Perkins, I think it's going to be consistent as to say there's a lot of good ideas. Maybe the execution there just didn't knock it out of the park. I think that's kind of the running theme, at least when I watch Osgood Perkins things, is that there's a lot of great ideas, and it's just like if you would have just kicked it into that next gear and really got there for us, then it would just be an all-timer of a film. And that's where I think Keeper has a lot of great ideas, and it just never fully develops where I would like this to be. Even when we get toward the end and we're back with Malcolm and Liz and they're in the woods and he's hanging upside down. For me, like, I don't know how you felt about that, but you talk about us like writing scripts and things. And I've been in where I'm sitting at my desk and I have a pretty good conclusion, and then I continue, and I'm like, I just don't know if this scene's hitting. I think I hit my point, and I'm kind of gotten past it. And I felt like as we got further into that scene, I was like, I don't know if we needed to go this long. It just felt like don't know if you reshuffled some of the cards. I think maybe I would have had a little bit more satisfying ending. I understand what he was trying to do, but for me, like that very end just did not hit 100% for me.
Yeah, and you know what I have an issue with? Why did they kill Darren? If they could have killed him like that entire time, why didn't they do it? Because I understand how they could kill Malcolm at the end, how they could attack him, because she's now the one that's in charge. She's the one that they turn to, the one that they're subservient to. That's their mother, in a sense, a reincarnated version of her after many millennia or whatever. I get that. But why the fuck were they able to kill Darren right away?
You know, and I think maybe that the idea, and this is where another thing that minor issue, because like logically when you're speaking on it, I don't know, like, so Liz stays because the entities, the figures ask her to stay. They want her because she reminds them of their mother. So Malcolm, in my head, I'd be like, well, I might want to stay away from any sort of female that looks like their mother, because that could either anger them or turn them against me. Like, you're dealing with these things for hundreds of years. Now, I'm assuming they killed Darren because wasn't he going to kill Liz for them? I don't know. He had I picked it up when he had the butcher's, the meat cleaver, that he was going to be hunting her down because Malcolm wasn't doing his job.
Yeah, but I just felt like she hadn't even accepted her role yet. Because, like, by the time they're able to kill Malcolm, you know, she's already they're like, we want you. And she just, like, starts laughing and, like, embracing them in the basement. So I'm like, that made sense as to why they can now hurt Malcolm and Malcolm can age. I was just like, so is that enough for them to kill Darren and, like, stop them from killing her? Or is that, like, their first sign of revolt?
That is what I picked up, was that Darren was not even going to give her the opportunity for them to ask if she could stay with them. Like, they gave her the opportunity. So of course she says, yes, now we can dispose of Malcolm. Darren, I felt like, was just going to outright kill Liz. So they had to stop him before that could happen. You know, obviously these things weren't going to explain their reasoning to Darren. So you have to dispose of him as soon as he becomes a threat. At least that's what I had picked up afterward.
Yeah, and I kind of took it as when you hear him on the phone talking to who I assume is Malcolm, and he says, it's okay, I'm going to take care of this. As, you know, he didn't actually have a patient or anything to go see. He was literally just like, you know, oh, she ate the whole cake. This kind of fucks everything up. Like, what are we going to do? And he didn't have the guts to kill her.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't seem like the type at all. like that's why he feeds people to them and stuff like that. It's like, and that's why I think Darren called him, like, what did he call him at the beginning there? Like, he's such a poetic softy or whatever.
Yeah,
Kind of, he takes his time.
Yep. And that's where it's like, I don't know how you felt, but I never really bought the Liz Malcolm relationship other than him saying, "Oh, you're so special." Like, I never felt, even when they're at the very beginning of this and she's like kind of straddling him and they're talking about her painting, and I think it's just they're talking about her breasts or something like that, and I'm just like, this feels so weird. It doesn't feel like
feels like they don't
connecting.
know each other very well.
So it's like the more interesting portions of it for me were actually Liz by herself rather than these two together.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll give that to it. I just think, like, for me, it comes down to this movie just feeling so similar to, like, for the first half of not unveiling things, so similar to so many things I've seen before, and not really giving me enough new until a certain point, which I get. But I think, like, you look back on movies, again, I brought this up off air with Barbarian, where it's like, that is giving you kind of this basic story, but they do enough of, like, oh, here's a twist, here's a turn, here's somebody who is not subverting expectations, who's who's bringing up things, they're calling out things. It's like, I like that a lot, and I think that's what kind of kept that interest going, and then they go full throttle with it. As to where this one, I just felt like you weren't cluing us in enough on something that's different than just, like I said, a ghost story, or oh, he's a serial killer who murders people, and this is the ghosts are trying to communicate black phone style, whatever. It's like, I was kind of thinking it's that, but again, the ending committing to kind of this folklore witch kind of stuff, the stuff going back and then seeing the women all through time, like, I like all that, and I really didn't think I was going to when I saw the marketing, because I was like, this just feels like it's already showing all of its cards. So I appreciate that. But I think where I land on this as a whole is, like, I think that I like this movie, I would say, more than, like, Longlegs. And I think that's only just because, like, I think the ending is a bit more satisfying with that reveal and them committing to something, as opposed to me building up all those expectations for Longlegs and it being more supernatural when I wanted it to be more, grounded, which that's my fault. I'll always admit that. That's why I think I have this issue with that movie. But at the end of the day, I just think overall, this is, like, one that I won't own probably, but I might watch again just to, like, kind of see what more I can pick out of it.
Yeah, for me, like, this one, I don't know necessarily. I think this one actually might work better watching at home just because of the story that's involved. You might find it a little more eerie being inside your own home watching this at night, rather than being in the theater. I had walked out of the theater thinking, oh, that might be a little fun rewatch if it ends up streaming. Like you, I'm not going to own this one. I think
it is a cozy movie, I will say that.
Yes,
it does feel that way.
It's very beautiful. I love the setting of this one. I love it being more of this folk tale horror. Sometimes I don't think I see enough of those stories, especially when we go to the theater to see them. I think there's so much potential with that storytelling. I think Osgood Perkins, he got in the stadium, the ballpark, if you will, for this story. Just never fully felt engaged for me. So I think, like, in terms of the three that we're talking about, this one probably does fall at the back of the line right now, just because I think it is slow to an extent. I didn't buy a lot of the chemistry that was going down. And not all the monster stuff worked for me. So I think this one did leave something to be desired, but I think there are some pretty strong positives when you really lay this one out and understand what Osgood Perkins was trying to do.
I want you to know we're going to do our very best with you boys. It's just that our very best might be pretty bad.
And that brings us to the next segment here. Yes, I want to reflect a little bit on Osgood Perkins as a filmmaker and kind of the name he's made for himself over the last 2 years or so. And it's kind of incredible. I mean, like, I think the story that I understand as to how all three of these movies with Neon kind of came about, because to me, it just seems like it almost came out of nowhere that, like, Osgood Perkins and Neon suddenly are in such good, like, standing together that they're making not one, not two, but three back-to-back movies with him, all in the span of like a year and a half. And it's this kind of thing, I guess, where it's like when they worked on Longlegs, he had gotten the offer for the monkey, and they were able to just take the same team and do it again up in Canada or something. And then he also had, I guess, with Longlegs pitched Keeper, and then they were like, well, Longlegs did so well, let's do this after you shoot the monkey. And that's how this kind of came about. So it just is happenstance. But to me, I just think like we have three very pretty good movies to okay. And I'm just kind of like, I don't know if the whole title of Master of Horror, I don't know if Osgood Perkins has reached that level for me yet. I just don't see anything in his filmography that has truly blown my mind. Everything has had potential. Everything has had a lot of buildup, a lot of excitement, but I always feel like one way or another, he has dropped the ball with me on each of these films.
I'm in agreement with you as well. I don't think I ever feel fully satisfied with any of these three films. There's always something that I'm like, well, if you did this, or if you didn't lean so heavy into that, I would have absolutely loved this film. I can pick each different film out of here and say, there just was a wrong avenue that you went down and left me unsatisfied in some aspect. And I really enjoy Longlegs, but I can agree that that third act and the hand holding that goes down in that just doesn't really work from a narrative perspective. I think, you earn your stripes to a certain extent, and the audience is smart enough to really connect a lot of dots. But when you look at Longlegs and the marketing there, man, when you say Master of Horror, I don't know if you want to put it on Osgood Perkins, certainly Neon, Master of Marketing, these films, that's where a lot of these things excel, where it's just like there's so much anticipation, so much buildup, especially having Longlegs. And I don't think any of us would have guessed just how much anticipation there was for that film.
Daddy! Mommy! Make me! And save me from the hell of living!
Dylan, I know we got was it a still or something? You did a short on it, and then it had taken down at one point.
Yeah, it was the poster. There was a temporary, I guess it wasn't even the main poster they used. It was like one that I think they sent to one of the cons or something of like a silhouette of Longlegs standing over a woman, tying her up, and it was in a doorway. And I put that up as a short, just talking about it, and Neon struck our channel. It was like, whoa, what the hell? I knew that was a risk, but I thought it was so cool to find it and think that it was legit. And all that did was confirm the legitimacy of it. So it was kind of just like a risk we were willing to take to, I guess, get the social clout, because I'm a clout demon. That's all I'm here for. I want the clicks. So
that's what Dylan chases.
That's where Osgood Perkins and I get together, because it's all about marketing. It's all about chasing the clout. No, I'm kidding.
That's all we need. But Longlegs certainly excelled for everyone wanting to check out that film. And then what we get is certainly divisive of mixing the supernatural with the psychological horror. It doesn't always necessarily satisfy everyone. I enjoyed it just because we don't see it that often. I like the aspect that they implemented there. But again, when you look at it from a writing perspective and just how cohesive a narrative could be, it certainly does leave something to be desired, because I think there is a more cohesive element you could have found with that when you really stand back and look at Longlegs and say, we could find more of a happy marriage than what we do get in that film. So I understand the contention and why not a lot of people are satisfied with that film. It's very beautiful. I love the performances. From a psychological aspect, it is very strong. And if they would have decided to double down on that, I agree that I think that could have probably upped the ante for a lot of people and said this is probably one of the best modern horror films of the decade at the very least, because that's why I think this one wins so many bonus points. Is 2/3 of this film is just so strong.
It is, and I'm like living proof of that argument, because like I said earlier, I'm with this movie 100% until we fully commit to the supernatural stuff. Even if it was just a taste of it, like the flavors that we were getting, I enjoyed that, and I didn't need it directly explained. Like, just give me touches, little hints towards the end of how he was able to get in that house and drop off that letter, maybe see if there's a little bit more going on in her head. But like for me, it just kind of lost me when it comes down to, oh, it's Satan. it's Satan this, it's Satan that. And then it's all this stuff about, oh, like you can see the devil hidden behind every character in like 20 shots or something. It's like, I just was like, I thought that like the idea of the Longlegs character and having somebody like Nick Cage commit to a performance like that, I was like, is that really all we're going to lean our hat on at the end of the day, is Satan? And it's like, make him interesting, make him the embodiment of evil. I want like Anton Chigurh levels of Nick Cage here, where he's just like this. He is the devil incarnate. He's a reaper. Like I want that, where it's like it's not literal. It's like he's able to do this because he's just broken. But hey, it's a different kind of movie, and I respect it. I still totally agree that 2/3 of it, the performances, everything works. It's just one that, I guess when I look at it, it's just not the movie I kind of wanted it to be.
And I totally understand that. I think, like I said, it is so strong where I'll say it's an A+ for 2/3 of that film, and then I'll say it does kind of drop down to about a C, but it's so strong that it continues, that I have to go back and watch it. It's such an enigma of a film. Nick Cage in that, Michael Monroe. I mean, both those characters just so thorough and well done. Where Nick Cage, I think you could have increased his screen time and even added a little bit more texture to Longlegs, because that opening, I was like, what the fuck
So
is going on?
strong, so
Yeah.
crazy good. What a way to fucking get the movie started. Like, and that's when I was like, really like, and it's so hard that I think that's probably where I have to say a lot of my with Osgood Perkins comes from that movie still, because it's like, you had me locked. I
Yep.
was so ready. And the fact that I fell out of love with it by the end of the film, I was like, that's disappointing. So I think maybe that does carry over, but I think just in general, he hasn't done anything that's like really, I think, still qualifies that master of horror level. And it's like, because I think that like he's got a lot of potential to do it, and he still might. I mean, going into it, honestly, my favorite of the three, we should talk a little bit about it, is The Monkey.
Who's smiling now, you infernal son of a whore?
And I think that, again, comes from Stephen King's source material that's getting obviously adapted and kind of, tooled around with, mixed around with. But seeing him go full blown horror comedy and knowing it after watching it again and knowing that's where they were going, I love that movie. I think I don't like, I'm not head over heels like in love, but I do love a lot of the movie. There's a lot of fun. There's a lot of creepy. There's a lot of gore. And honestly, again, the performances in this, very strong. I would say out of these three films, the weakest performances are in Keeper. And I think it just comes down to just lack of chemistry and a little bit of writing. But like, I think that like Theo James is incredible in this, and he's playing a dual role, and I think he's a lot of fun.
Theo James, we said it in our review of The Monkey, like, belongs in a Stephen King properties, narrating Stephen King properties, because this feels like a Stephen King property. When you have his voice coming in and talking over him at the supermarket and kind of talking over where he is as an adult, it feels like a Stephen King book really come to life. And The Monkey does excel in terms of that horror comedy. Now, for me, it's always a contention. We talk about it every time on the channel, where I think it walks the fine line. Sometimes not all the comedy hits, especially toward the end of the film. I think kind of doubling down maybe on a couple of more serious moments, especially the motivation, and then kind of where we have him saying, "Oh, I didn't think about that," is always going to be a problem for me, because it's like, come on, it kind of
Too tongue in cheek,
ruins
it
the
does,
stakes of the film. And then how kind of offering, "Hey, well, why don't you come with us?" It's like, he just kind of killed everyone and half the people in the town. I think I don't know how that's going to work, but I love the aspect of The Monkey. I think, in terms of sequels, I would love to see this one be dusted back off. I think, I don't know where you go with the story, but having just this iconic drummer monkey kind of getting back out there and doing something would be a lot of fun. The father and son element is fun in this as well. And Rowan Campbell is very, very turned up to 10, which I love to see it. It owns what it is, just not everything in the film works for me, but certainly with the gore aspects as well. If this one feels probably the most different, where it's like Longlegs and Keeper, I can draw some parallels in terms of the visuals, the tone of the film, but The Monkey is just something of its completely own thing, and I think a lot of people really enjoyed this film. I know we had
Yeah.
a lot of people did not like our review of it because they thought
No.
we were negative on it,
They thought we hated it, but we were
it's
like,
like,
it's
you
good.
know,
It
yeah,
has a couple problems, but it's pretty good.
but
Like,
it's really entertaining. You know, I think this is the one you can throw this one on. I've actually watched this one last week in preparation for Keeper, and it's a breeze to get through.
yes, it is very quick. And that's the thing that I think we complimented it on when we were watching it the first time. Because, like, again, I guess I'll put this on myself too, is I did not realize that it was a horror comedy because I tried to stay away from marketing just because of Longlegs building up so much. I was like, let me just go in with nothing. And I didn't know that it was straight horror comedy because I was thinking, Jesus, dude, why are you leaning on the comedy so hard? So when I watch it the second time and knowing that's intentional and that's where it's going, it feels much more consistent. Yes, there are a couple of spots, like I said, I don't care for the wrap up with the villain as much. I like the reveal, but I don't like the wrap up. And I also think that just like in general, there's kind of a meanderingness to this movie. Even though it is moving kind of quick, there is just kind of one section where they're at the house where it's just kind of like, all right, what do we're kind of just biding time. We now know what the stakes are. Let's just kind of get moving towards it. But Rowan Campbell definitely moves that story along for me a little bit. His character's just so wild. That performance is so crazy. His death is so fucking nuts. I absolutely love that part of the movie. And I think for myself, and like you said, maybe a lot of people, that this might be his most appealing project. I think, especially of these three, but I think of his career thus far. So I think like Longlegs left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. But I think The Monkey kind of wins you back. And with Keeper, I think it is such a sharp turn into kind of, you know, more independent, more thought-provoking, I guess they would call that, or we've coined that term, elevated horror. But I do think there are, again, nuggets of greatness there. I just don't think that he has found that one project or that one movie that necessarily I can sit here and honestly cement him as a master of horror or the next great voice in horror. I think he's still got some work to do. But I think he has potential to get there. I think he does have some good stuff in him. I think he's just got to find that balance. Maybe get a writing partner and really let their voice kind of guide your visual story.
He's got a lot of pieces when it comes to creating stories and creating really fun horror. It never feels like he's able to connect each and every dot to make just a fully complete film. I think he's got a lot of time to get there still. We're kind of really just riding the Osgood Perkins wave with these three that we're talking about. Yeah, he's been in the game, but with these three films, they've had so much notoriety.
Back to back.
Yeah, and he's already got his fourth film lined up, I think. They're already doing casting on that one.
Yeah, but I think the one thing you bring that up at a perfect time, because that was going to be one thing I was going to say about his next movie, is like the fact that we at least have a year or two in between projects at this point, I think is good, because I think I've also kind of run into this point. It's called The Young People, where it's like it's filming now, but it's one of those things where it's like I'm just happy that we're not going to get another Oz Perkins movie right away. It's like, let's take some breathing room, because that's the other thing where it's like, how is this guy getting 3 movies when like, you know, there's people who I think totally deserve those shots, and they're not doing anything, or they can't get anything picked up.
I think it has to do with that Longlegs, just the kind of the way that one was marketed, the groundswell of anticipation that film had. I think that's carrying you a long way, where it's like these other two films came out directly linked to the anticipation for Longlegs. So it's kind of like, hey, he had these other two films lined up. He rode that Longlegs wave. And now we're seeing this fourth film, which, you know, the way he's been turning around these films, I would not be surprised if next year at this time we're talking about that film. I don't know when that release date is.
I'm sure it'll be, if not next summer, by next fall.
Yeah,
maybe.
In retrospect, very quick turnaround times for his film. So it's like that train's chugging along, and where he's got a lot of pieces, he has yet to make that fully complete film. I think he could get there. I think sometimes he's got to get out of his head a little bit. Sometimes he kind of feels a little pretentious with his storytelling. Like I always go back to The Monkey, where the ending where the horseman's walking past, and I'm like, I remember being like, what the hell is this? And then everyone came out. I think it has to do with the end of the world or something like that. And I was like, do we really need that? But sometimes he kind of just injects some things that don't necessarily resonate with me. But I'm intrigued to see what that other film's going to be as we close in on a release date for that one. These three, they all have good and bad to come along with them. But Master of Horror, I don't think he's there yet. I think he could get there within, maybe a decade after kind of really finding his flow, I think, and really getting into that ballpark and saying, okay, now I know I have every piece, I have everything polished. Now I can put this all together and really produce something that is going to please. You never please every horror fan, but maybe you can please most of them.
I want to go back to before.
Well, there you have it, guys. That's going to wrap us up here for our little Oz Perkins, discussion video, I guess you'd say, / spoiler review for Keeper. Definitely let us know down below. Are we way off base here? Are we not giving this man enough credit? Is he somebody who is truly the next master of horror, the next big voice? As well as, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. We are on our way to 60,000 subscribers. We are closing in fast, so we hope you'll join us here on Splattercast. And yeah, got a lot of good stuff heading your way. A lot more videos coming this week. So until next time, I am Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, stay scared.
Do the horror shit, gonna do it live. Cause Splattercast kick it every day they live. Splattercast, gonna smash your ass. 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 Splattercast, gonna smash your ass.
Hail Satan.